Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through the sources you provide to really pull out those key insights.
That's the goal.
And today we're diving into something fascinating: corporate culture. But here's the twist we want to explore. What if that culture is actually, well, a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy?
Hmm.
Our mission here is to really unpack how the expectations, the beliefs, the day-to-day practices inside a company, how they can build on each other, create these cycles, sometimes for good, sometimes not so much. We've got some great real-world examples from the material to look at.
And this isn't just fluffy stuff about feelings. The impact here is huge for you to understand.
Mhm.
It's not only about how employees act day to day,
Right.
it genuinely shapes a company's whole direction, its big strategic bets, even how the market sees it. It's about how a shared belief, when it's strong enough, can almost,
Mhm.
well, make itself real.
Okay, so let me unpack that phrase then. Self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of corporate culture. What are we really talking about here? How does a belief actually shape reality?
Well, at its heart, it's this idea that a belief system, just by existing and being acted upon, makes itself come true. Think about a sports coach, maybe.
Okay.
If that coach truly deeply believes their team can win, and everything they do, the training, the pep talks, the strategy, reflects that belief,
Mhm.
well, that belief itself often pushes the team closer to actually winning.
Right. It changes how they play.
Exactly. So in a company, if leaders consistently push and reinforce certain ideas about who we are and what we can do,
Yeah.
those beliefs start showing up in how employees behave, their attitudes,
So it's like you believe it, you act like it.
and then it becomes true, or at least truer than it would have been otherwise.
And what's really fascinating there, I think, is the power of expectation itself. It's sort of the engine driving this.
Absolutely. That's the core mechanism.
You set up an environment expecting certain things, good or bad. People often adjust their behavior to meet those expectations. It's not magic, right?
Yeah.
It's just consistent signals leading to pretty predictable human responses.
Consistent reinforcement, yeah.
Thinking about this, one company immediately jumps out, probably what most of us listening have experienced: Southwest Airlines.
Ah, yes. Classic example.
Right from the start, they built this belief, almost an insistence, that they were going to be different. Fun, friendly, efficient, totally unlike the older, maybe stuffier airlines.
A very conscious identity.
Yeah, and it wasn't just like a marketing tagline. It seemed to be core to who they were. But how did that belief become, well, the reality you experience on their planes?
That's the self-reinforcing part.
Yeah.
Southwest leaders consistently talked about this expectation. We expect you to be fun, friendly, helpful.
Okay.
And crucially, they hired for it. They looked for personality for people who naturally had that warmth and humor, not just the technical skills to be a flight attendant or gate agent.
So it wasn't an act they were putting on.
Less of an act, more of an encouragement of who they already were.
Yeah.
And then they celebrated it, right? Flight attendants telling jokes, singing announcements, things you just didn't see elsewhere.
And the result seems to be exactly what this prophecy idea suggests. Employees feeling that expectation and maybe the freedom to be themselves, they just naturally acted in ways that cemented that fun, friendly identity.
And then customers notice. They start
Mhm.
expecting it, they appreciate it. That positive feedback then goes back to the employees, back to management.
And the whole cycle strengthens.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a huge factor, according to the sources, in Southwest's decades of profitability in a really tough industry. High customer satisfaction, high employee morale, all flowing from that initial cultural belief, constantly reinforced.
It really shows how powerful a shared belief consistently acted upon can be for long-term success.
Okay, so that covers employee behavior pretty clearly. But does this self-fulfilling thing stretch further? Does it actually influence, say, big strategic decisions?
Oh, absolutely. It ripples right up to the top.
I'm thinking Amazon and that famous customer obsession.
A perfect example of culture-shaping strategy. Amazon, from its very early days, had this relentless focus driven by Bezos on the customer. Right.
The core belief was create value for the customer, even if it hurts profits in the short run.
And the launch of Amazon Prime back in, 2005, that seems like a huge example. I remember people thinking they were crazy.
Oh yeah, lots of skepticism. Free shipping, how can that possibly make money? It looked like it would just kill their margins.
But if you look at it through their cultural lens,
It makes perfect sense. It was the ultimate customer-obsessed move. And that decision, rooted in their cultural DNA, absolutely became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
how so?
Well, more people signed up for Prime.
Hmm.
Because they had Prime, they started buying more stuff. more often from Amazon.
Okay, yeah. Locks her into the ecosystem.
Exactly, which then justified the initial cost of the free shipping. The success proved the cultural belief right, and that reinforced the obsession, leading to more big bets like one-day shipping, experimenting with Amazon Go stores, developing Alexa, all aimed at customer convenience.
And it attracted employees who believed in that mission too, presumably.
Right? It created this powerful loop. And you see the result, over 200 million Prime members worldwide by 2023. Phenomenal growth, market dominance, all arguably fueled by that core cultural belief making itself real through strategic choices.
It's powerful stuff. But, as you hinted earlier, this is definitely a double-edged sword.
It absolutely is.
It can reinforce the good, but it can just as easily lock in negative patterns, creating a downward spiral that's really hard to escape. The sources point to Uber, particularly in its early days under Travis Kalanick, as a stark example of this dark side.
Yeah, it's a tough case study. The early Uber culture aggressively prized growth and competition above almost everything else.
They had those infamous 14 cultural values.
Right. Things like always be hustling and toe stepping. It basically encouraged a kind of win at all costs, maybe even confrontational approach.
And that belief system that this was how they had to operate, it became self-fulfilling.
It seems so. It attracted people who thrived in that kind of intense, aggressive environment, and their actions reinforce it. And it led directly to decisions, prioritizing incredibly rapid growth, sometimes skirting regulations, sometimes directly confronting local governments and taxi industries. Legal gray areas were maybe seen as obstacles to overcome rather than boundaries.
And internally.
Internally, it manifested as intense pressure, crazy long hours. And then, as we found out later, really serious issues like sexual harassment, discrimination. The culture seemed to permit or even encourage boundary pushing in many areas.
Now, some might argue, and maybe Kalanick himself did, that this aggressive wartime mentality, while maybe messy, was actually necessary for Uber to disrupt the taxi industry so effectively. Is there any validity to that perspective based on the materials?
Well, the sources present that tension. They show how that belief that they were fighting an entrenched enemy was used to justify pushing boundaries. But they also detail the consequences. Which culminated in that series of massive scandals in 2017. There was a lawsuit alleging stolen trade secrets from Google's self-driving car project, Waymo, revelations about a software tool, Greyball, used to deceive regulators.
Right, I remember that.
And all the internal cultural issues bursting into public view.
Yeah.
It raises that critical question. When the very culture that fueled your growth becomes toxic, how hard is it to change? The traits that made them disruptive were now hindering reform.
And ultimately, it led to Kalanick stepping down.
Yes, and his successor, Dara Khosrowshahi, came in with a specific mandate to change that culture. It highlights just how deeply embedded these self-reinforcing negative cycles can become.
Okay, so it can be hard to change, but it's not impossible. Culture isn't set in stone forever.
Definitely not. It takes real effort, conscious effort, but it can be done.
And Microsoft under Satya Nadella is often held up as a prime example of transformation.
A really compelling one, yes.
Before Nadella took the helm in 2014, the descriptions of Microsoft's culture often painted it as pretty competitive internally, siloed.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the stack ranking system.
So explain that quickly.
Sure. It was a performance review system where managers had to rank their employees on a curve. A certain percentage had to be rated top performers, a certain percentage average, and, crucially, a certain percentage as underperformers.
Ouch. So you were directly competing against your colleagues.
Exactly. It fostered internal competition, sometimes at the expense of collaboration between teams. People were maybe protective of their own projects, less likely to help others if it might affect their ranking.
And Nadella saw this as a problem.
He clearly did. He came in and started talking about and really pushing a fundamental shift towards a growth mindset.
That's the idea from Carol Dweck, the psychologist.
That's the one. The core idea is shifting from a fixed mindset, where you believe talent and intelligence are fixed, to a growth mindset, where you believe abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. It emphasizes learning from failure, being curious, building on others' ideas.
But how do you make that real? It sounds good, but changing ingrained behavior is tough.
Well, crucially, Nadella didn't just talk the talk. He modeled it himself. He admitted mistakes. He showed curiosity. And he made structural changes.
Like getting rid of stack ranking.
That was a huge one. He scrapped it. He actively encouraged leaders to be more vulnerable, to share learnings from failures. He pushed for collaboration across different divisions, breaking down those silos. Even small symbolic things like physically opening up parts of the campus sent a message.
And did it work? Did people, buy in?
It seems they really did, over time. As employees saw this new mindset consistently valued and reinforced through promotions, through project approvals, through how leaders behaved, they started to adopt it themselves.
So a new self-fulfilling prophecy started.
Exactly. Teams started collaborating more. Failure became less feared, more of a learning opportunity. This apparently led to increased innovation, Microsoft becoming more agile, better able to adapt to cloud computing and AI.
And it attracted different kinds of talent too, perhaps.
Likely attracted talent that wanted that kind of collaborative learning environment. And the results are pretty stark. Microsoft's market value, its stock price, has surged incredibly under his leadership. It really shows that deliberate, consistent leadership can shift even a massive company's culture and trajectory.
So understanding this whole self-fulfilling prophecy idea gives leaders a really powerful lever, doesn't it?
A very powerful one.
If you consciously choose the cultural beliefs you want and then consistently reinforce them through everything you do, you can actually steer the organization in that direction.
That's the potential, yes.
Netflix strikes me as another company that's been incredibly intentional about its culture right from the start.
Very much so. Their culture of freedom and responsibility is famous.
They even published that Netflix culture deck online, which got millions of views.
Yeah, they were unusually transparent about it. And it wasn't just abstract ideas. They translated it into very specific, sometimes radical practices.
Like what?
Well, the most famous are probably things like having no set working hours,
Mhm.
no formal vacation policy.
Wait, no vacation policy? How does that even work?
The underlying belief is, we hire a responsible adult. We trust you to manage your own time and take the vacation you need to be effective without needing specific rules or tracking. It's maximum freedom, expecting maximum responsibility in return.
That requires a lot of trust.
It does. Another practice they call sunshining.
Sunshining.
Yeah, the idea is to bring mistakes out into the open, discuss them transparently to learn from them, rather than trying to hide them or assign blame. Again, it requires a high degree of trust and psychological safety.
Okay, so how does that create a self-fulfilling prophecy? I mean, wouldn't no set hours just lead to people slacking off, like we wondered before?
Well, that's the fascinating part. By setting the expectation that they hire and trust responsible adults, Netflix tends to attract people who are responsible and thrive in that kind of high-trust, high-autonomy environment.
Ah, so it selects for the very traits it relies on.
Exactly. And those responsible people, given that freedom, tend to make good decisions for the company, work hard because they're motivated by the mission and the trust placed in them. This success then reinforces the belief that trusting people with freedom works.
It's a virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
Trust breeds trustworthiness, which justifies more trust.
Precisely. And that cultural foundation, that willingness to trust employees and take risks, arguably enabled Netflix to make incredibly bold strategic moves, shifting from DVDs to streaming when it was risky, investing billions in original content before anyone else did at that scale. It fueled their growth into the global giant they are today.
So bringing this all together then, the big takeaway seems to be that corporate culture isn't just, posters on the wall or the company picnic.
Not at all.
It's this living, breathing thing, a really dynamic force that, through these self-reinforcing loops, can either propel a company forward or drag it down. It truly is a double-edged sword.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture for you listening, the crucial insight is that culture isn't just something that passively happens to an organization. It's not like the weather.
Right.
It can be, and arguably should be, shaped intentionally by leaders. The real power to create those positive, self-fulfilling cycles comes from consistent reinforcement through daily actions, through who gets promoted, through the tough decisions, not just through mission statements. Actions really speak louder than words here.
That's a powerful point. So maybe a final thought for you to chew on. How might understanding this whole idea that beliefs and expectations shape reality, how might that change how you think about creating an environment? Maybe it's a team you lead or are a part of. Maybe it's your family dynamic. Or maybe it's even just your own personal habits and beliefs. Because in a way, all of these are like miniature cultures, aren't they? Constantly shaping your reality through these same kinds of reinforcing loops. Something to think about.